America's Mayor. Talk with America's Mayor. I think that's the name of it. Have we changed it?
America's Mayor Live.
America's Mayor Live.
Mayor Rudy Giuliani.
That's it. We're alive.
Very special guest this evening, Mr. Christopher Rudy of Newsmax.
Now, Chris, you step in right close to there so they can hear you, because Chris.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you for having me.
Chris is the president, the CEO, the founder,
Grand Poobah.
and he is new. I mean, you'd have to say he's Newsmax, right?
Well,
Chris is Newsmax. I mean, of course, it's a great organization with many, many people, but he started it, and he's built it to what it is. And Newsmax is involved now in a dispute that any and all of us could be involved in. Maybe not at that level, because their First Amendment obligations are so great. But he is being kept off the cable networks, and he'll explain this better than I can, that are controlled by DirecTV. For no good reason other than they think his programming is too conservative. The reality is that this has been going on for quite some time. He's had to struggle and struggle and struggle. Burdens that shouldn't be placed on an organization that's just trying to bring you the news as best they can see it, based on the philosophy that their reporters have and thinking that they have. And this is part of that whole effort that's been going on now for much longer than we realize, to have just one viewpoint for our for our media. And the viewpoint is becoming excessively left-wing. But worse than that, it's becoming excessively intolerant. And therefore, you can't have another viewpoint. It'd be one thing if they were very left-wing, and I could go on their shows and debate and present the right-wing view. And we could educate people then, but that doesn't happen. So you need an organization like Newsmax that I don't consider to be a right-wing organization. I consider it to be a free speech organization. It has balance. Whereas on NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, oh my goodness. I mean, the things they say and do, I don't even think you can call it news anymore. But okay, that's my thinking. I want Chris to describe what happened to Newsmax that has so many people. I mean, there's quite an uproar about this. And I'd like him to explain, because he understands it a lot better than I do.
And Mayor, as Chris explains this to us, comment below. Let us know your favorite Newsmax program. A lot of our audience also tunes into Newsmax. So let us know, comment below your favorite program on the Newsmax network.
I'm going to have to watch the show now to see what the comments.
Yeah, we'll see who wins.
Incentive for me. I have seen the show and I like it. And partly is you are such an exceptional person in terms of a host, a personality.
Oh, you're just saying that because you were with Trump last night?
He loves you. I mean, that was like, he walks on cloud nine when he talks about you. It's amazing. I think it's something deeply sentimental about New York City and when you were mayor. And he says you were the best mayor, but it's about, I think those were the golden years. People like George Steinbrenner and Bill Figgins. Yeah,
he was a mutual. They were mutual friends.
Yes, and you were the mayor, so you were the prince of the city, and he was a prince, I guess, as well. But anyway, he really thinks glowingly of you, and I think he calls you the best lawyer he ever met. So,
well, also, I think going through 2016 together. I mean, I spent the last 5 months of the 2016 campaign, virtually with him 17 hours a day. So you really get to know somebody. And the stuff they did to him it's almost impossible to describe if you weren't there.
Yeah. We're all suffering, probably not as much as he has suffered, but definitely not as much as he. I think, Mayor, that there's been a tremendous effort to restrict conservative voices. The left, which says they're for diversity, only believes in diversity of appearance, not diversity of ideas, right? Because if they truly believed in that, they would allow conservatives and all points of view. They don't want to hear them. And what they've tried to do, which conservatives never do, they want to ban voices that are dissenting from their worldview, whether it be climate change,
Right. And
or
God
it's
forbid
not
if
just Trump, it's climate change, it's the Wuhan virus, it's all sorts of agenda items they have you can't dissent on.
Yeah, I mean, when you go on, I was well known for being the one that would always go on CNN or MSNBC, and during my own campaign for president, when I campaigned for McCain, and then when I campaigned for Trump, sometimes I was the only one that was willing to go on CNN or MSNBC. And toward the end, it really got bitter. It changed. It changed during the 2016 campaign. First half of it, you could go on, you'd have a real spirited debate. But in the second half, they were attacking you, your children, your mother, your father, your uncles.
They were weaponized.
Yeah, I mean, they were after you personally. It was a personal encounter rather than
when
ideas.
Trump left the presidency, all the restraints were gone, and they systematically tried to close down conservatives. We saw it on social media first, right? Twitter deplatforming the president, Facebook, but also Newsmax. Anytime we would have certain topics on YouTube, for instance, Google is one of the worst offenders in this thought police stuff, and they can't close you down. I believe it was a violation of the law, a violation of the Congressional Act, Section 230. They're supposed to be neutral platforms. They're not. So it basically was, in my mind, illegal what they did. They've gotten away with it. They've never been held to account. It set the stage when we saw the deplatforming from social media also meant that conservatives needed to be deplatformed from cable and television systems. We know that because after the Pelosi wins in 21, Democratic congressmen, especially Congresswoman Anna Eshoo from California and Jerry McNerney, both friends of Pelosi, write letters to AT&T, all the cable systems, and they say, why do you have One America, Newsmax, and Fox? And that they specifically ask when their contracts expire and what plans they have to renew them. Clearly, we're trying to deplatform us. They had hearings about it. Now, that effort actually bore fruit for them because we know that One America was deplatformed by AT&T and DirecTV. AT&T owns DirecTV.
Okay, so I was going to ask you that because a lot of the people that are protesting against AT&T.
Yep.
And I thought of it as Hulu and DirecTV. But AT&T owns.
So Disney owns Hulu. Totally separate.
Okay.
AT&T got into the media business in a way. It bought a cable distributor, DirecTV, I think in 2015 or 16.
And that's when it used to be antennas, DirecTV.
Satellite.
You put it on the top of your building, right?
And they merged it with Uverse, which was their internet cable system, and another thing called AT&T TV. It's now DirecTV, DirecTV Stream, and Uverse are still around.
But is it pretty much like the other cable?
Yeah, it is.
It's
It's
regular.
the same cable package. Sometimes, I mean, people refer to cable also to include, say, a satellite, right?
No longer.
Generically.
Could they have reached a Chinese satellite?
With a weather balloon, maybe. But what happened was they deplatformed. They got away with the killing of One America. They didn't hear it really much pushback.
Right.
And then we didn't think they were going to deplatform 2 conservative channels in a year. But you know what? The Congress had changed. They didn't care. AT&T owns 70% of DirecTV. Now, if you call AT&T, they'll say, we have nothing to do with it. We don't control it. They own 70%. They're the responsible agent. And we believe they're making
it was 70%. Last time I checked, it was a majority.
Right. And they have
a big super majority, actually.
Super majority.
Yeah.
They picked they picked 2 members of the board and they picked the CEO. So since it's an AT&T executive, they're running it, and they decided to remove us. And it's pretty clear this was a political act, and that's why it's not like a private company has the right to make a choice.
Right.
If they work for political reasons to restrict voices, and a big company like AT&T has a responsibility to be fair and balanced, we're holding them to account. And President Trump and others have spoken out. So they removed us on January 24th from 13 million homes. We were there for over 5 years. It's the only cable system to have removed us in this significant way. And we're fighting back, and we're letting people know that we're
How long were you there?
We were there for over 5 years.
Okay, so I mean that's in television. That's
Yeah, we were part of the furniture. you know, we counted 22 liberal news channels, news and information channels. The comedy channel, believe it or not, Ted could tell you this, is news for millennials. They go there for news, right?
Right.
The Vice channel is a news and information channel. It's pro Antifa, pro BLM. You know, it's all propaganda. All of these 22 channels get a cable fee. That's how they make money in cable. You get a license fee from the customers who pay their bill. And they pay everybody, all the liberal channels, and all they have is Fox. They've gotten rid of One America and now Newsmax. And their position to Newsmax was that we should not get 1 penny in fees. Not that our fees were too much, that any fee for us was too much.
Why? Why are you not entitled to fees?
They
Because
didn't have a really good explanation for it. I mean, they said, well, you get a fee before you didn't get a fee in your first agreement, which is true, but everybody usually starts in cable without a fee. And when Fox started, they didn't get a fee.
right, you have to build up. You have to build up.
Yeah, because how do you value? You value the audience based. You value the cable channel on the audience. We're number 4. We're the 4th rated cable news channel in the United States.
Okay,
Top
so
16.
Fox.
Fox, MSNBC, CNN, and Newsmax.
Oh.
Under us are things like CNBC, Fox Business, News Nation.
But they're sort of specialized. No,
Yeah.
the business ones are kind of specialized.
Yeah, well, News Nation has got a very big footprint. We still beat them in ratings. We still beat Chris Cuomo every night in ratings, even though
Chris who?
Even though that
I think
other
I knew
guy
him.
is in 25 million more homes. The point is, it was
I had some
political-
real
it was a
battle. I had some
political-
real. He used to love getting me on because it was the only time we got ratings, and largely not because I was popular, because we get into real battles. I mean, it almost looked like it was going to be,
Yeah.
the Friday night
Chris
fights.
was actually not one of the bad ones over there. I think you know.
He kept getting worse and worse and worse. He started off open-minded, but he's always been a decent human being.
And
I consider him a decent human being.
I actually still like Chris.
I do too.
Even though I think
Great
he's
affection for him.
liberal, I don't think he's as weaponized. But you remember, CNN became weaponized, Mayor, during the years AT&T owned it. They bought it and got control of it in 18. When the years it went like crazy against Trump. And I would go on during those years a little bit, and then at the end you couldn't go on at all, but because they were just so nuts.
We had a couple of shows, Chris and I, where I was the first guest. You had 8 other guests lined up, and I was on for 40 minutes fighting with them.
Well, it's good
It was
TV.
like an Italian Thanksgiving dinner,
But you
and I was fighting with one of my uncles.
you probably
Children,
did it in
'cause I always-
studio and,
I considered him like a baby.
That's right. You knew him when he was a
I
kid.
did. I knew him when he was 14 years old.
This is Chris Cuomo we're talking about.
But
Andrew too.
AT&T is a very woke company. I can tell you other things they've done. The chairman of the board of AT&T right now is William Kennard, who was Obama's chairman of the FCC. There's a number of Democrats. The American Spectator did this expose, Jeffrey Lord, on all of the Democrats of the Clinton-Obama administration that run the board. So whatever that is, they have a response. Alan Dershowitz said, look, he's a liberal, as you know, comes on as Newsmax legal
He's
analyst.
actually a very good friend.
Yeah.
He and I have been debating for 30 years.
Now, here's a man that voted for Hillary Clinton, voted for Joe Biden, but you respect him because he's an honest
Always
guy.
have.
And the left doesn't like him anymore because he's a liberal, but he's honest about his position.
He's what I call the liberals I grew up with, many of whom I had great respect for. First of all, I don't think I ever was a liberal. I was sort of a conservative Democrat until Great Society, and I was a prosecutor. And it seems to me that all the Great Society money, half of it will go into the crooks. I mean, we weren't getting to poor. I mean, if the Great Society money had gotten to poor people, there'd be no poor people. I mean,
Well, look at all the money spent on these programs that have impacted nothing for the rate
well,
of
they're all
poverty.
crooked. I mean, the American people don't know this. I prosecuted it for 12 years. The money doesn't get to the poor people. It's sort of like what the Clintons got caught with in Haiti, where they got all the money for Haiti. The Haitians hate the Clintons because no money ever showed up. The money was given to all of Clinton's friends who had these so-called NGOs that are just an excuse for stealing money.
The media has.
They never did anything.
The media is owned and operated by the left, and they dominate. And they think fairness is 22 liberal cable channels and 1 Fox. And Newsmax is here to, and we've done really well. I mean, we've grown a few years to be number 4, top 16, 16th ranked of hundreds of cable channels. And we didn't have the resources of Murdoch, CNN, and all of these.
In a
others.
strange way, you got a big boost. Not that you wanted it, but you got a boost when Trump lost. I remember there was a big movement to you in particular, a little bit to OAN, but to you in particular.
Well, even before that, we had a huge reach. But yes, on that election night, it became clear. You know, Fox News called the election for Arizona 20 minutes after the polls
You
closed.
don't think I remember?
There were still people on the line. But you know what? I was there that night in New York in our headquarters. They still hadn't called Florida, which had closed 2 hours earlier, and Trump was leading by hundreds of thousands of points. It was clear they did not want Donald Trump to be presumed a front runner or a winner. They did not want him to look like he was winning that election. Nobody knew exactly where it was going to turn out, and I think they made a big mistake doing that. I think, and we called the elections eventually for Biden on every. We just said if Trump's contesting in states where the election,
Well, you couldn't look. Where you were sitting, you had no ability, nor did I, sitting in the White House, to look beyond it. I then investigated it, but that night you had to take the numbers for what they were, and I went to bed thinking he won because one of my favorite states and one of the states that was my specialty was Pennsylvania, because I talked the campaign, and I had a lot of difficulty before Bannon came in getting them to agree with me that he should go to Pennsylvania. But I knew he could win Pennsylvania. I knew it just, I've campaigned there for years, going back. I know it's a state that has a conservative, it had a Democrat pro-life senator. So you don't get killed on abortion there. And I knew that being a guy who really believed in all of the treaty theft that went on, that was going to resonate with the former steel worker families and the miners.
Hardworking,
So I went to bed. I went to bed on election night. I left the White House at 1 a.m. He was ahead by 750,000 votes in Pennsylvania, and they had stopped the counting. And that's when I became suspicious, because before I left the White House, I found out they had stopped the counting in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Michigan, Atlanta, Georgia, Las Vegas, 6 places. And strangely, he was leading in all of them, and he lost all of them.
The bottom line for us as a news organization is I don't believe we make a judgment. We just report the news. And the final election results, the legal and final result was that Biden won. We reported that. We did report what you had said, what the president said. Now, what the media has said, and the established media, is we should not have covered you at all, or we should have called you a liar the minute you spoke. And that we believe that should be something.
The American people make up their mind about that.
And the courts, and you guys had court actions. We reported on all of that. That's our job. People, that's old fashioned. If people watch Newsmax, the Nielsen data shows that our audience is 25% Democratic, 35% independent, middle of the road, 40% Republican. Our audience is 60% Democratic, middle of the road. That's Nielsen MRI data. That's not me. Why do so many people like Newsmax? Because if they watch it, it's more of what a traditional newscast was in America 40 years ago than anything else now out. Because on Fox does the talking points, the agenda points. We're much more about bringing light discussion on issues. We're hated because of that. We also cover Trump, he's a.
And I know, and we both know, we're not telling stories out of school. Sometimes he gets upset, right?
Oh yeah.
Because when you see him, sometimes he'll say, "What did you come at me like that for?"
Well, he doesn't.
And I used to tell him, he was not. One of the things that the former president, he was never in. He complains about all of them. Yeah. He used to complain about Fox too. I mean, the whole. And then he would rate them as 100%, 95%, 90%, and then he'd have the ones in the minus categories. The minus categories.
Who was in the minus categories, man?
Like
I can tell you one, Chris Matthews was in the minus category for a long time.
Well, look, Trump's a tough critic, but I've always, even though I've been known him for 25 years, you've known him for a lot longer, is that I've always kept my news. I have a news organization. We have a news mission. we always publish a lot of criticism of him just because it's part of the news cycle, not because we're out to get him. But
Yeah,
we always give
and I
him a
think
fair
I think
shake.
he knows that. And
we
when
have people like you and others that have come and defended him, and I think Bill Buckley. You knew Bill better
yeah,
than
sure,
I did. But,
interviewed by him a lot.
and he used to say, we don't as conservatives want to control the media. We just want a fair shake. Because if you tell the American people the conservative view and the liberal view, they're 90% of the time, 80% of the time going to go with the conservative point.
You know, when Turner Broadcasting settled the case with Fox and let them on in New York and 4 or 5 other places, I had given them the New York station.
I know you made Fox.
I had 2 personal friends in that battle, Roger Ailes,
Yeah.
and Roger was my campaign manager. My first
Brilliant
campaign
guy,
for
brilliant
mayor,
man.
taught me how to be a candidate. And the other was Dick Parsons, who was the president then of Turner Broadcasting. He was my law partner. And the guy who probably had the biggest role in getting Ronald Reagan to make me Associate Attorney General. So Dick was a little angry at me, but Dick told me that when they settled the case, Turner said to him, "We're going to regret this. This guy's going to kick our..." But Turner knew there was a disgruntled,
But you know what?
large audience out there that have been dying to hear the other side.
But you know what? It's not a rocket science. Half the country is conservative leaning. In fact, if you look at the data, the polling data shows the country's more conservative, maybe 55% than it is. And it's an underserved market. Meanwhile, the left divvies up and fights over it. The minute Fox came along, they immediately won the battle, right? They've been dominant. And all these big media companies could easily get into that sector, and they don't want to compete because they don't like conservatives. They don't like that audience. They don't like that value system.
Yeah, I mean,
Newsmax does, and we immediately have taken a big market share when you look at our overall numbers between cable and streaming of the Fox audience.
but cable probably doesn't mean that much. Like, it's part of NBC. NBC is gigantic, and the cable division, if it makes money or doesn't make money, probably isn't all that significant.
Fox is $3 billion going on $4
Well, that's
billion
true.
enterprise,
That's true.
and it's funding. It's been a big money maker,
And their news- and their-
MSNBC makes money for sure. And CNN's made a lot of money, even though they get low ratings. These guys, they still make a lot of
Well,
money.
because they get the advertisers.
Well, also they get the cable license fees, which that's how you make money in cable. Which brings us back to the Newsmax situation. Every cable operator needs license fees.
But some of those ratings that I see, it's I don't know if it's still that way, but when Roger was alive, I was his lawyer, and I would look at it really carefully. There were times in which Fox doubled MSNBC, CNN, and they had doubled their joint.
Well, that's
audience.
true today.
Still true.
During the Trump years, MSNBC and CNN rose where they were probably outpacing Fox combined. But now it's back to the old normal, which is that Fox is bigger than both CNN and MSNBC combined.
Correct.
And Newsmax, if you add our numbers into it, it's even a bigger audience.
So how do they make money? Why do people pay them if it's a audience that's so much smaller than Fox?
Well,
Because it's based on something else.
Well, license fees and advertising, and they tend to get really, the advertising agencies tend to be liberal, and they give a lot of money to CNN and MSNBC. And Fox has, advertisers. We love Mike Lindell at My Pillow, but he's not considered a brand ad like a Mercedes ad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I think he's more fun than Mercedes.
Mike's
I love Mike. Every time I see Mike, I feel better. There's something about him. He's one of my real favorites on TV.
Especially when you got one of his pillows.
He's a little like the old fashioned, the guys who would sell cars and stuff like that. Come down to Big Sam's used car lot. I'll get your car for $1,000. I'll get your car for $500. I'll pay you to get a car. Just come down and we'll get you a car. Big sale this weekend at Sam's Auto Dealer.
You did that pretty well, Mayor.
I grew up
I
with
might
that.
be an agent for you in Hollywood. Are you looking for a movie career?
Yes, I always have. It's
Um,
my secret desire.
So we are facing a real enemy now. It's not going to kill news.
How do you win? How do you win a battle like this? The courts. I mean, there are. I don't want to get into it, but there are legal theories that the courts could entertain. And I think they're getting very, very close, probably not in your case, but in some of the cases where the government conspired with them, because then you have a violation of the First Amendment. If they're acting as a indirect agent of the government, now the First Amendment applies to them.
When you do the right thing, you win. And so, in a way, small way, we've already won.
In what sense?
Well, in the sense that we're doing the right thing by standing up for what we believe in, right? We're not being pushed around. We're not going to accept what the deal they were saying. Look, we'll carry Newsmax free, but they knew at the same time we would get zero license fees. They were going to discriminate against. This is an important word that Kevin McCarthy's used.
Yes.
That Ron DeSantis has used about us. They're discriminating against Newsmax. They're saying of all the cable channels, you can't get a license fee. They know that if we accept zero from them under our interlocking agreements in the industry, all our fees go to zero, and they demonetize us. This is one of the big things the left is doing. They're trying to block the money flow of ad revenue, license fees, any way they can if they can't outright close you down and then deplatform you. And so AT&T was super clever here in making this deal, but when people look through it in Congress, they're looking at it.
Right.
And look, there might be regulations that Congress have. We can look, and you're a lawyer, you know this. Did government collude like we saw the congressional to restrict Newsmax and remove us? Did people in the Biden administration? We found that with Twitter, the FBI was actually telling them to not allow you to be published there.
Yeah, I think the Post, for example, has a really, really good case, because now you've got all this testimony that the government came to them and asked them to do it. So they're an agent of the government. And so the legal theory is that the First Amendment only applies to the government. It doesn't apply to private activity.
And Mark Zuckerberg says the FBI visited him, and it was a reason why he wouldn't report on the laptop. They're saying that the media is not really covering the Elon Musk Twitter file story, and the reason is that there's some people speculate that a lot of them were doing this, including with the government, about who could get speech and who couldn't. This is a tremendous breach of your constitutional rights, but it's such a serious thing because it sets the stage for a fascist state where the state can start dictating, and it's a dangerous thing. It's more than just like a technical point here. The government going in and closing down your free speech rights. We saw, religious liberties closed down during COVID. It's a very dangerous precedent that's laying the groundwork for something bigger, and we must oppose it and fight it. And if we don't, we're going down an extremely dangerous path.
Yeah, we're following the playbook written 150 plus years ago by Karl Marx for how you turn a country into a communist country.
And you used to say
That's what we're
something
doing.
like that, and people would go like,
Oh, they don't anymore.
But now you realize, Dennis Prager, I think, is a real intellectual, great guy. And he said, look, this is the greatest crisis, one of the greatest crises in the country, this assault on free speech. We're threatened. Sarah Palin's no intellectual, but I think she's got a native common sense. She said, this is the beginning of socialism in America. This is how Venezuela starts. Chavez comes in, he shut down all the opposing media voices. That's how he got control, and now Venezuela is like Cuba.
So, we got a question?
Oh, Rudy, yes, I do, Chris.
Can we get a microphone over to him? Go ahead, Ted.
Thank God for Ted. Okay.
Ted's the man.
They're interesting points and they're interesting realities. But it's like you said, Rudy, the vote or the count stopped. You went to bed. You woke up and we lost. What's being done about the fact that they took it? Everybody knows they took it. Anybody with two brain cells rubbed together know they took it. They took
You're going
it.
to get us thrown off of one of those guys.
It's one thing to lament the problem. Okay, that's fine.
They're not going to do it to you. They're going to go.
It's one thing to lament the problem. There's got to be some initiative put in play to try to defeat this.
And of course, that is a guest of ours raising some concerns about the previous election.
I'll give you a good example of what you can do about it on the election. You can pass laws. You can pass laws like the law that was passed in Wisconsin and the law that was passed in Georgia that would cut down dramatically, whether there was cheating or not, the opportunities to cheat. And you can only do that where you have a Republican governor and two houses of a Republican legislature. You can't get a law like that, for example, passed in Pennsylvania because you had a Democratic governor who would veto it.
Well, they use COVID really to loosen a lot of the normal mail-in ballot systems. We had things that have never taken place. We've never had a system where they mail out the ballots to everybody's home and you just mail out the ballot. It used to be you had to request it. There was a process. There was a verification. And because of COVID, a lot of that was thrown to the side. It may have caused some problems in the tallies. At least the Trump people believe that. I agree with the mayor that you should have systems that improve the voter integrity. If you're looking at the polling data, 80 to 90% of people, we have a great pollster friend, John McLaughlin, who says 80, 90% of the people say that they're for voter ID laws, that citizens should vote, right? And that you should have everybody agrees with this, yet the Democrats don't want to have these most basic safeguards, and they want everybody to give their license everywhere they go, but except at a voting booth. It doesn't make any sense.
You're going to win that battle, but you're going to win it incrementally. You can't win it all at once because you have to win it in a majority of states. So
Harold from Ohio says, I absolutely love that guy that just started commenting off camera. And we've got a number of people saying that.
I love him too. And I love you too.
Harold, his name is
And
Harold.
we're on the right track. Straighten this out. Take us another week or two and it'll be over with.
Where's Harold? Where's Harold from?
Harold, please, I believe you're from Ohio. Let us know where you're from.
Right to the right middle
a
of the
number of
country. Right
people
in the middle of the country.
They love our audience tonight. We have a live audience off camera, and a number of them will be asking questions throughout the show. Chris, people are asking, how can folks across the country who watch Newsmax, how can they be a part of this fight and support Newsmax?
I'm glad you mentioned it, Ted. There's a couple of things you can do. One is President Trump has said that you should cancel DirecTV and AT&T, and he said he was canceling his DirecTV. He was canceling his AT&T cell phone and other wireless. The only way I think people are going to listen is if this change. And I know
Mobile.
thousands
Go
of
to
people, Patriot Mobile, T-Mobile. There's a lot of choices now for people. We have a number 877 Newsmax. If you call it right now, you can be connected to DirecTV. You can complain. You can cancel. You can do what you want. You can call that number and also get AT&T, Newsmax. You can call that number and get Congress. Ask for hearings about this. We need to have a discussion about these big companies discriminating and targeting conservative media and closing us down. We know that probably about 100,000 phone calls have gone into DirecTV since this started on the 24th of just 2.5 weeks ago. So there's tremendous momentum growing, and people thought, well, it died down. It's actually growing. We had a record number of calls because we can see the number of calls coming in to 877 Newsmax. So it's a huge response. People can go on. We have a website, iwantnewsmax.com, iwantnewsmax.com. We have a petition. We have other action items. We have phone numbers for you to call, and we're just getting a huge response. So I think at the end of the day, we win, even though they dent us for the moment, taking us off 13 million. We're available on almost every cable system. We hear is just they're advertising all over for our subscribers because you get a huge number. They're a satellite. They're
The difference in here. What's the difference between Dish and don't they have one of those big
they're both
things that
satellites.
look like you're communicating with Mars?
Yeah, exactly. Both satellite dishes. And they both serve Americans. Oftentimes don't have cable, but a lot of people
But
now.
if you get those, can you talk to the Chinese balloons?
The weather balloons that are watching us right now. There's one flying right over there.
Mean, they didn't do any harm. I mean, they just accidentally hovered over 3 air bases that have nuclear facilities that could bomb China. I mean, they just happened to end up there because we're a very small country, and you're just going to get there.
That's another amazing
and
thing.
Biden just let him do it for 8 days. It never occurred to him that China had given him and his family in the last 5 years $31 million. It just never occurred to him that happened.
It's so bizarre. They allowed this balloon to go all the way across the United States and only took it down when it got to the Atlantic coast.
And he said he protected us.
And then he said it had no threat. But meanwhile, today they've just shot down an object that was flying over Alaska So it just arrived. So how do they know that was
It
a
was a-
threat? And this was
That
not.
was
I would have.
probably a Republican National Committee
Yeah.
balloon.
That's right. It was a Giuliani balloon, and
You know,
he
I
knew he
put up
had
a
to
balloon.
take it down.
Yeah, I wanted to,
I think they supported Trump on that balloon.
So we want all of our viewers to support Chris and Newsmax. So that number is 877 Newsmax. So please, we were asking all of our audience
It's bigger
at the
than-
top of the hour.
and the issue is bigger than Newsmax. It's bigger than Chris, me. It's about I mean, in the old days, your biggest allies would be the liberals with a conscience. The ACLU would be on your side.
And there were a lot of them out there. Now it's like Alan Dershowitz, right?
Alan's the only one left, and nobody. He has no friends left.
And
You know
he
that.
says that.
He even
says
talks
he's
to me
been
now.
disinvited to everything, and people like. And he says now, if people see somebody talking to him, they won't invite the person that was talking to him.
And you can't have
to parties.
you can't have the kind of relationship that he and I had since 1970. So I had cases against him when he represented terrible people in the Southern District. And then we became friends. And he would invite me every year to his law school class. I would go twice a year, and we'd have a debate about search and seizure or about the Miranda decision and about constitutional issues involving criminal law. And they were bitter debates. Then we go out and have dinner and talk about. I mean, the thing about him that is really, really warped is not that he's a Red Sox fan. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
otherwise,
you barred him from coming into Yankee territory in New York,
I
right?
went to I used to go to games with him.
Okay.
I have a picture.
That's nice of
I
you.
have a picture of a Yankee Stadium
That's
with his Red Sox thing on, and I'm like protecting him.
Well, Alan's an amazing guy. He's a great friend. He's an incredible man, and I love him dearly because he's a good person.
Yeah, but he was the norm, Chris. He was the norm when I was growing up among liberals, particularly on something they considered the First Amendment sacred. They were even forgotten the great constitutional scholar Micklejohn, or he would make a lot of the fact that it's the First Amendment. And from their point, they said it's the First Amendment because freedom of speech, freedom of religion are the two things from which everything else happens. Because if you don't have that, like in Russia, in the Soviet Union, you had the right to vote.
They're going after those basic freedoms.
They
Free press,
vote in
free
China.
speech and freedom of religion. But I'm a big data guy. If you look at the polling that for Gallup since 1990, they've been tracking party identification and ideological identification for Americans. And what's changed over 30 years is that the Democratic Party used to be about 25% liberal. It's now become 50% liberal, and it's become radicalized. And that the reasonable people in the Democratic Party, who were more moderate, I wouldn't say they're conservative, they've left or gone into independent or left for the Republican Party. And the Republican Party has been pretty much consistently conservative in a moderate way. And this radicalization on the left is what's really fundamentally changed the United States.
Absolutely.
And we're again, you and I are not calling for CNN to ever be closed down. I haven't heard anyone even in the middle of all of this saying that. But the left is closed down Newsmax, closed down One America, closed down.
They're not going to close. If they close down CNN, I'd lose half of my comedy material.
We're getting a lot of questions for our very special guest this evening, Christopher Rudy, the CEO of Newsmax Media. Timothy from Australia asks, Chris, does Newsmax have access to the White House and Department of Defense briefings?
Yes, we do. And we have a great team of people. James Rosen, very famous correspondent, is our White House correspondent. John Gizzi is there. A bunch of our guys are over at the Defense Department. Gizzi goes over there, James as well. So we cover the State Department. We have access to Congress. And Kilmeny is one of our congressional correspondents. She's there. And Logan Raddick. So we have a really good team of people that are in Washington. Greta Van Susteren leads our Washington bureau. Sean Spicer is the former White House press correspondent. He's based in Washington as a show. So you can get Newsmax for the time being on apps and free streaming down there. Go to your app store and just in Australia and look for Newsmax, download us.
I'd listen to it just to find out all the things you're not being told by the New York Times, the Washington Post, and very often I build a whole radio show on that. This is what was not covered. That
Well,
is
look at how many-
enormously significant.
So many big things. The Wuhan virus didn't come from Wuhan. Now it does come from Wuhan.
It was those bats,
the Hunter
those
Biden
damn bats
laptop
that
is,
the Chinese people eat.
now it's everybody agrees it was Hunter's laptop.
You know, the Chinese people do not eat bats. There was a whole bunch of hokum. They were very insulted by it. Well, the woman, the first whistleblower was actually put on the air by Dr. Maria, because she was going to go on. She was going to go on with Tucker Carlson, and they had brought her over from China, and she was too nervous to go on. So Bannon had the idea.
I remember her.
She stayed with us for 2 days. If she stays with you, you'll calm her down. Maria's a doctor, so they'll be able to talk. And they became good friends, and then we put her on our Sunday show, and then she went on Tuesday night and explained something. You have to be an idiot not to realize that it came from that laboratory. There are no bats in that part of China. The closest bat is 1,000 miles away. The only place in that part of China where there happened to be a significant number of bats is in the Wuhan laboratory, because they were experimenting with them. The market does not sell bats. The people in Wuhan, including her, were insulted that we thought that they eat bats. So what the hell would eat bats for? They're rodents.
Yeah. Well, we're still, I just spoke to Rand Paul today. He tells me we're still funding the coronavirus research for the Chinese to this day.
Well,
He said the U.S. government official that testified didn't even know if we were or weren't, but he says we are. I mean, that's another nutty thing that's going on.
That's going to turn out to be another massive historic scandal of major dimensions. And it's, as the Robert Kennedy Jr. book makes clear, it's something I was trained in by Silvio J. Malo, Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney to Bob Morgenthau. Follow the money. You want to catch the crooks? He had a New York accent. He would say, "You want to catch the crooks? Follow the effing money." Well, Dr. Fauci, would you please release your royalties for the last 5 years? You may be fooling a lot of the people, but you are not fooling me. You do not want to show us those royalties because it is going to sink you.
Thanks for joining us. We're getting a lot of comments. Steve from Indiana, he likes to watch Wise Guys and Johnny Tobacco.
Oh, he talks like, I love the way he talks. And the guy is like a really major, smart financial guy.
Yeah.
But he could have a part in The Godfather.
He's real. He's real.
Hey, what do you think of the interest rate? What do you think the Fed's going to do this week? Let me explain how it works. That'll give you like this scholarly explanation with the New York gangster accent.
John's tremendous.
And the way he dresses.
That whole team on Wise Guys is great.
Carrot
They
is
give
fabulous.
a real New York take on things. It's
Carrot.
People, their ratings are great. It's a great show. It's fun.
Carrot
on
is
Saturday nights.
Carrot is a resource for me on the January 6th people. Very few people know as much about the people that are being tortured as she does. She's got a.
J.A. Lamont says he just got his first issue of the Newsmax Magazine. Really fine stories, both politically and health. And he considers it a good investment.
We have a huge, probably about 800,000 people a month read Newsmax Magazine. It's a print publication. We're probably one of the most profitable, successful magazines left in politics.
So why does your print? I mean, you also do very, very well online.
Yeah,
I mean, in fact,
we're huge
long before
online.
television,
We're
you
huge
were
online.
massive
We're
online.
one of the largest political news sites online. We have been for a long.
Well, how do you explain the paper?
Well, we started in the early days with there wasn't a lot of revenues online. This is back 25 years ago. So people wanted a print product still. And we said, you know what, there was a market for it. We got a lot of subscribers.
I am.
And in recent years, it was slowing down. It was down about like 100,000 paid circ. And now it's back to 250,000 paid subscribers. And the readership is usually triple that each month.
Well, for a print publication, that puts you near the top. Right?
Well, it's certainly.
Who the heck has more
I think
than
it's the largest political publication out there right now for paid circulation. And it's monthly, and it gets incredible.
What do the old-fashioned ones like Time, which has about 3 pages now?
I don't track them. What
do
their
they have?
circulation may be.
You can't have a lot of people. They only have about 3 pages.
Yeah, a lot of them. Well, U.S. News and World Report went out of business. Newsweek is still around. I'm not sure they still have a print publication. I haven't seen one recently. They did for a while, but we're still tugging along, and it's an important. We think it's just another way we reach people. If you go to Newsmax, you can go online. You can download our app on your iPhone or Android and get free television for the moment and the website.
When did you start the television station, Chris? Exactly.
2014, we did our first
Yeah,
show.
because I think of Newsmax, because I'm ancient. I think of you as a magazine and then.
Yeah, well, we started as a website. The magazine came around in 98 and 2001. And then over time it's grown. And then we saw, the video was so popular. We do these video interviews. So we should really have a TV channel. And we saw this opportunity in cable in 2015 and 16. We're on every major cable system now, except for DirecTV. So you can get us on Xfinity and Cox and Spectrum and all the different systems. And it's just been a force of nature. We're on free on the streaming OTT, although that will end sometime this year as we become a regular paid cable channel. And we'll probably have a secondary channel called Newsmax 2, which will be like headline news, like CNN headline news for Newsmax viewers. So we're very excited about the future. And, the presidential election is coming up. Whether you love Trump or not, or love DeSantis or not, Biden, this election is going to be the Super Bowl of elections.
Oh, yeah.
And Newsmax is going to be one of the best places to go get controversial stories that you're not getting.
From a ratings point of view, is Trump being in it going to make it bigger?
Trump has definitely, if you look at his involvement in these debates and numbers, it's usually through the roof. He is a draw, and people either, as I said, love him or hate him, and that draws audience, right? People will tune in just to see what he has to say, even if they disagree with him. Where somebody like Biden is very pedantic and boring and a little tiring. And
worst ratings for a State of the Union speech in 30 years. I'm trying to think of who was it, Jimmy Carter? Who could have had worse ratings than him?
Clinton. 30 years.
Well, Clinton had good ratings for the State of the Union. Well, they used to be very long, though. Remember Clinton's State of the Union speeches? One of them, I think he's still giving.
No, there's been no political figure like Donald Trump in the history of maybe the world that has gone and drawn popular support. And you've known presidents going back to Ronald Reagan. If even Reagan showed up, he had 300 people greet him at the airport. That would be like a really big number. Donald Trump has 30,000.
The first time I saw it, I knew he was going to win.
He could go into 10 cities and get 30,000 in every city.
I told him the first time I went to a rally with him, and I saw 25,000 people in Ohio in 92-degree heat, with another 10,000 waiting outside. You win.
And again, this is not whether you like Trump or hate him or whatever it is. It's a fact. He's a historical figure that we haven't seen. And they'll be writing books about hundreds of years from now about the impact he had on populism, American politics. I like history, so I see this for what it is in the moment. And he was extremely impactful. I don't think he needs to run again. I know he wants to run again, but he had so much impact in that one term. He did more than what most presidents do if they had 3 terms, right? So he's been a very impactful president, and I think a lot of things the Democrats, when Biden's doing stuff good, he's been tougher on China, on like Taiwan thing. That comes from Trump.
Yep.
And so and he benefits from that. The border's been a disaster because he didn't follow Trump's lead on this.
Yeah, there's also a movement within the left-wing Democrat Party to have open borders, and I think they see it as a political strategy. They're going to bring those people. Look, like in New York, this didn't get much coverage. The New York City Council voted for non-citizens to vote.
And California's been pushing for that.
So the state court has entered an injunction because the state constitution says you have to be a citizen to vote. But the New York City Council figures we're part of China or something.
It's amazing. It's like you would think that's considered. Look, I just heard in Texas, I was speaking to a high state official in Texas today, the Harris County, Houston, just voted to defund the police today. And that's Harris County, I wouldn't think is like, I mean,
It
might
is.
be Democratic.
It's
but
become that, and they have a Soros bought and paid for DA.
Well, it's a frightening thing that in Texas, in a big county like that, they would still be doing this.
And the mayor is, one of the numerous Democrat mayors who likes criminals better than honest citizens.
We're battling for the future of the country, and people are deciding which side they're taking, and you've got to become informed of what's going on.
Let's make a challenge to our audience, Ted, and we'll have them. They can answer it on Monday. I want you to give me 3 cities that are well run and governed by a Democrat. I can't find them. I used to know some when I was mayor. I had contemporaries when I was mayor in the 90s. Ed Rendell was a mayor of Philadelphia when I was, and whatever you think of Ed's politics, Ed was a damn good mayor.
Mayor really didn't do bad.
He was a lot better mayor than he was a governor. He'll get angry at me for that. But the governor, he was sucking up to Clinton, and he was not a good governor. He did nothing as a governor. But as a mayor, he was actually very good. Who's the one they had? Nutter had 8 years he was a good mayor. I think it's Nutter, Nutter.
Nutter.
Hey, Rudy, I have an idea. How about a challenge to your audience? Come up with ideas to undermine the heist.
But yeah, why don't you? Here's what you can do. You can communicate that way, or you can go to rudygiulianics.com. There's a whole place there for your comments, and you're telling me what to do, because I need guidance and direction. I did when I was mayor. We didn't have the extensive social media we had, but I had a radio show every week on a Friday. It came on before Rush Limbaugh. So I had a big audience.
WABC, where you're now.
Yeah, I had a big audience because they came on before Rush Limbaugh. And it was hilarious because I tried to, Rush was a personal friend. He was being trained by Roger Ailes to be a newscaster because he was a sports guy when Roger was teaching me how to be a politician in 1988, 89. So we were very friendly. So I tried to imitate him. So I would begin my radio show as the mayor, and I'd give a monologue about something serious, the budget, how I was going to cut the budget, or maybe I'd talk about Israel, or maybe I'd talk about Russia or whatever. Okay. First question. Mr. Mayor, I don't really give a damn about all that crap. There was a tree in front of my house for 2 weeks. I've been calling the sanitation department, the parks department. I called the general number. I get the runaround. And everybody says you're reforming the city. How come you can't remove the tree? That's what I would get. If I get an hour of that. They're making at the end of my term, I used to get the noise complaints. Like they would say, I live in Astoria, and 2 blocks away there's a bar, and it makes too much noise. What are you gonna do about it? And I would say, well, I'm just gonna begin with one thing. You made me very happy with that, because when I started the show, they used to call up and they would say, I'm afraid to go on the subway because somebody's gonna blow my brains out. And now you're not calling me about that. You're talking about noise. I'd rather talk about noise, but I will take it very seriously. And I had a deputy mayor, you know him, Rudy Washington, who was fabulous at closing down all the noise. Because he lived in Queens and he used to get annoyed by it too. I would always pick the people in my administration, like Denny Young, my friend, unfortunately passed away early this year. Denny just had it with graffiti. He was the counsel to the mayor, but he would drive in the morning and he'd take a little extra time. He'd write down the places where there were graffiti. And then he'd report it to the police department. Rudy Washington would write down the places that were making too much noise. But they all had little pet things they took care of. Quality of life is really important. But can you compensate for will you get other, have you seen an increase on other platforms because they've taken you off that one? I mean,
We think there's been,
there has
it's
to
a
be.
little early to see
I get
what the
questions
full-
about it.
Yeah, it's a little early to see the full impact, but I don't think it's going to dent us to the degree they say it's going to dent us.
I was actually thinking
Well,
might even help you.
Well, certainly the awareness around the country now of what's going on is elevated Newsmax in the public square, and people are realizing why are they trying to close us down? Why are they opposing us when we had such high ratings? Remember, they have 22 liberal news channels, and there's probably 100 liberal entertainment channels rank lesser than us. They pay them more money than we were seeking. We were seeking from them $1 per year per cable subscriber, which is about the lowest you can get. CNN gets $14, just to give you some concept of this.
Well, with only 10 subscribers.
But But meanwhile, they keep all of these low-rated liberal entertainment news channels, 100 of them, that nobody watches, that you pay for in your cable bill, by the way. You pay. It's not DirecTV that pays for it. You pay for it. And they won't keep a high-rated channel that doesn't cost them a lot. So he immediately says, well, how is this a good business decision? DirecTV's lost 7 million subscribers since we've been with them. 7 million subscribers. They had 20 million. They've just given up Sunday football. So a lot of people are saying, why should I stay with DirecTV? I can go now to so many other places, the Dish Network on satellite. They can go to Fubo on the internet to get Newsmax. They can go many places where available. And people are saying, and
Why do they give up?
With their pocketbook.
Why would they give up football? My goodness, that's a big draw, isn't it?
Well, it's costly now to pay for the football rights.
Ah.
Right? So that was priced into a lot of the packages, and maybe DirecTV is not as cheap as valuable as it was without those. So Dish has got tremendous contracts it's offering people where the prices never go up and things like this for years. But we're seeing people telling us that we actually ask people to send us pictures if they're changing their system. And we've been showing them. We get dozens and dozens of these every day. When people show videos of them going to cancel.
I'm gonna talk about one of my advertisers, Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is a Christian conservative, and they brand themselves that way. Provider, you can get all of your internet needs taken care of.
People say
It
it's
is-
a good service.
It's just as good as the communist ones, and at least you're not doing business with communists. And they take at least, I think it's more. They don't just tithe; they do better than that. And they put it into. They were very big in the pro-life movement. They're very big in the pro-gun movement. They're a conservative values. And look, that's what they do. They fund the people that agree with them, and we got to do more of that. We've got to do more of that. I mean, it's a little like when Mr. Pillows got in trouble. I kept telling people, why not have a couple extra pillows? I mean, you can go back and have pillow fights. You could do all kinds of stuff. And the slippers are good, by the way. The slippers are good.
Mike does high quality things. He might put a salesman edge on it, right? But people keep buying the pillows. They
I
keep
got all of
buying
them.
various things.
I mean,
So
because
they like the quality. It's made in America. He's got very good customer service. So there's a reason he's been successful. But he's also been targeted, right? A lot of chain stores.
targeted. Ooh.
The chain stores have been locking him out. They're trying to demonetize him.
Well, the one that frightens me that they could repeat is the Parler. They just wiped Parler out,
Right. Well, they
and they were doing very well.
Well, they couldn't stop them, right? They created their own business, but they cut off their infrastructure with
Wow.
Amazon.
They just like,
Yeah.
and they were starting to really take off. And nobody in that space, Getter is attempting and Truth is attempting, but nobody's quite gotten where Parler was. I'm sure somebody can.
Well, Mayor, the fastest.
Getter, right there. You're right there. Getter is
Yeah.
right there. In fact, Getter should know that President Trump called on the Getter camera.
So our friends on Getter were interrupted last night by the president, and so tune into last night's episode if you want to hear the live call from.
Maybe we'll play it over the
Mr.
weekend for
Rudy
you.
was with the
I
president
was.
during the call.
Yeah, and I suggested Secret Service protection for him because these guys,
I didn't hear your part of the conversation.
Oh yeah, I said, what are you going to do?
His part.
What are we going to do about our friend Ruddy? I mean, he's got all these gangsters that are he's up against. See, I think of them as kind of like little mafia families because they're
And
monopolies.
You've successfully battled the mafia, so I would take your advice.
Yeah, I mean these people they're crazy. I mean they really have they've ruined a great thing called the United States. And if we're anything, we're a country built on free speech. And I remember representing the United States in Vienna on a conference and a treaty that was going to be done on anti-Semitism. And the European countries were really coming after me because although they have a lot of acts of anti-Semitism, and so do we, but they have more, we have a lot more anti-Semitic language because in many of their countries, it's illegal. Like in Germany, I guess overcompensating for what happened, it's a felony to say.
Well, I don't think it's any coincidence we're seeing in this country with all this woke stuff growing anti-Semitism. And we see, original BLM and Antifa, their websites were filled with anti-Semitic, the whole anti-Israel BDS movement, all part of an anti-Semitic trend. And 23 Jewish leaders, including Alan Dershowitz, but people like Joe Lieberman, Senator Norm Coleman, Abe Foxman, formerly of the ADL, Rabbi Schneider, a lot of famous Jewish leaders came out with a petition letter yesterday calling on AT&T and DirecTV to put Newsmax back on.
God bless them.
And they said we're one of the few channels talking about the anti-Semitism issues. That most channels will ignore it because it's sensitive to certain groups, and we're not afraid to cover it. So it's important. I think it's faith-based is very important for us.
Well, I think this was a fascinating conversation. I think we can tell by the participation that we've got, and anything we can do, Chris, to help tell people to get the heck off AT&T and DirecTV. If you're on DirecTV, you can join all. It went down from 20 million to 13 million.
It keeps going down.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get down to 1 or 2 million.
Well, we would prefer that DirecTV carry Newsmax, but if they want to make a choice and only side with the left, I think the public can make a decision about that.
Why don't you send John Tobacco over to talk to him? Hey, let's see if we can. Yeah, I'll go with Tobacco.
The
And
real
we'll
deal.
say, I'll make you an offer you can't refuse.
The real deal.
Here's the deal. I put it on you got a choice. You want to sign it or you remember in The Godfather what he said, right?
That's right, Mayor. Another busy news week. What is your closing message? And as you give that message, we have 877 Newsmax on our screen. And of course, the website, iwantnewsmax.com. Please visit iwantnewsmax.com and make sure you voice your support for a great American in Mr. Christopher Ruddy and Newsmax Media.
He's a champion of the First Amendment. And I would say of all the things that he's done, this is probably one of the most important. Because it isn't just him. He happens to be the one they're picking on. But in America, when they go after free speech, you've got to understand it involves all of us.
Had we fought back when America went down, we covered it as a news item. But
They're
if there was
competitors.
a bigger fight back, and at the time President Trump did speak up about it, but if there was a bigger fight back, I don't think this would have happened. So it really is true. If they come for one and you don't stand up, they'll come for another.
It's the history of
and you got to stand up for what we're fighting back as best we can, and we got to keep the Republicans in Congress, call them. The White House, the switchboard for Congress is 877 Newsmax as well. You have options where you can call them. Let them know on Monday, or you want hearings. You don't want the censorship thing to die. You want to know why they're doing these things and closing down Newsmax, One America, and others.
Well, that's it. And that is a great cause. Sunday, you go to WABCradio.com all over the world. Like Joel, my Israeli correspondent who calls me every week.
Joel Rosenberg.
Joel's just a caller. I made him my Israeli. He
Well,
calls
there's
me
a
from
great
Jerusalem.
guy in Jerusalem, Joel Rosenberg, and we have Dan Cohn, our correspondent, but he does a great web media.
Joel is suing the Biden crime family because the Biden brothers stole a lot of money from him. But he lives in Israel and he keeps me aware of the news there. And the point is, you can get us all over the world. And I have Dr. Maria on, who's the real brains, and she will straighten me out every time I'm wrong. It happens about 4 or 5 times a show. But I mean, it's a great show. It's the highest rated show on WABC on Sunday. And there's a reason for it, because we let people talk. I had this idea that those talking heads, I mean, I couldn't stand the talking heads. All of them. I used to play a game. I put off the sound and I'd repeat I knew what they were going to say. Why do I want to listen to what they were like? McConnell was going to get on and say the same thing and look like he was constipated and go, I will. Okay. Well, now that you're ready for Sunday, you go to WABCRadio.com at 10 o'clock. You'll have a great show. Right before it is John Catsimatidis, and right after it is Judge Janine. So
we missed something very important happening this weekend. We didn't get
the Philadelphia Eagles
Super Bowl picks.
Eagles.
Philadelphia Eagles money line.
I'm gonna go with the Eagles.
So our crowd, cheer if you're with the
Okay,
Eagles.
yeah, let's see.
Let us know if you're with the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend. So we have a very we have a
Wow.
Pennsylvania crowd. We do have a Pennsylvania
No. The
We have
people
from
the
Pennsylvania.
people for Kansas City are afraid to say it.
Okay.
They're afraid that the ones for the Eagles are going to beat them up. You know what the stadium's like, right? They have a
Mayor, it's been an honor to be with you.
we're in soccer
God
time.
bless you. Keep up your good
God
work.
bless you.